How's it going, everyone? Jiivita here with another release overview, this time for 201. My goodness, we're getting up there in the numbers. But this patch is focused on basically quality of life, bug fixes, and just general kind of polish. They mentioned somewhere, I now forget where, that their general kind of rhythm to updates is they'll add, one update will be for adding new features, and then the next update will be kind of polish, bug fixes, quality of life, and just kind of alternating back and forth, which is something I really like because while new features are amazing and awesome, they kind of do little if your quality of life never really improves or if old bugs never really get fixed. So I get just as excited over the quality of life stuff as I do the new features. One of the flagship items in this new patch is the simplification of forging support bombs. So if you're familiar, there's several different support bombs, or at least several different bombs that you can make using the special gum, namely the world regeneration bombs, healing bombs, energy restoring bombs, cleansing bombs that remove debuffs off of yourself and other players, and I think that about sums it up. But anyway, there's that's 4 different effects all on one gum, and by getting just one of those, you then are locked out of all the other effects. So if you're trying to make a healing bomb, is really kind of frustrating to try to get the right buff, because once you get, say, an energy buff, that bomb is essentially garbage as far as restoring health, unless you wanted to use rather expensive ingredients to be able to rip that buff off and then put on something different. And I keep saying buff, it's really a boon. There is a difference. There's buffs to the forging process, and then there's boons that augment the gear. So it's kind of easy to get those mixed up though. Instead of having those 4 different boons to basically roll, now all of the support boons are rolled into one boon. So now you either can get a regeneration bomb or you can get a support bomb. The support boon now has different ranks. So the first rank is healing, the second rank will be healing and restoring energy, and then the final third rank will be, it basically does all 3. So it's healing, energy, and cleansing. So that would be actually pretty cool. One bomb to heal them all, basically, or roll them all if you want to get into Lord of the Rings. But yeah, corny, but really nice. So it does appear that it doesn't really reflect this in the description, so that's a little bit unfortunate. So this has all 3 ranks of the support boon, so it should do all 3 effects, but right here it only says it does health, damage, channels. So that's probably just a little display bug. This is essentially a whole new boon, so all of the other ones are kind of still in effect. In other words, previously forged support bombs will not be updated, or at least it doesn't appear to be so. So you will have to forge all new support bombs if you want to take advantage of these new effects, or this new all-in-one boon. Another amazing improvement to bombs is now if the proximity trigger is, triggered, say you're trying to throw a bomb at a creature and the proximity trigger blows the bomb up, it should now always appropriately damage the creature. And I had really high hopes that this was going to translate into the support bombs as well. There's a bit of an annoying issue that if a player is moving faster than, say, a certain speed, that you would throw a bomb at them, it would heal them, but then the server, it's kind of like a latency issue to where that from your perspective it would heal them and the other player would even see the health restored, but then the server would go, oh wait, you were actually several meters ahead of where the bomb actually blew up, and then it would undo it, basically. So it was a syncing kind of issue, and that appears, at least for energy bombs, to still be the case, unfortunately. I had high hopes that that would be fixed, but all in all, I mean, pretty amazing that you only need one bomb to do all 3 things, or you could just stop at restoring health if health is all you're interested in, or stop at energy if that's the main thing you're interested in. But certainly having all 3 is just like throw bombs and just trust that everything will be taken care of if there's something to actually take care of. So quite amazing quality of life for healers. And staying with the forge side of things, they added a bunch of new tutorials to the forging process, so hopefully this will better explain how everything works and make it a little bit more accessible to new players. Personally, I feel the best way to learn how to forge is just to jump in there and just use the silly thing. Lots of mistakes will probably be made, but that is really how you learn. You can sit here and read all of these descriptions, but until you see it all play out and how they actually work, it's really hard to get a good understanding of what the heck is going on. But hopefully these new tutorials will help out with that. Also, the forging ingredients have seen a little bit of tweaking, basically in the compounds. It always appeared to be a little bit backwards to me that the pure Boon compound was the easiest to make, and yet it had no risk. It seemed like the ones that had risk or drawbacks would be easier to craft, and that by using more advanced ingredients you would be rewarded with more predictable results. So now the pure Boon compounds are a little bit more complicated. All it is they now require a spitter eye, which I don't know about everybody else, but I have about 1 million of these eyeballs laying around that I never seem to use, so I don't see that being too huge of an issue. I suppose for newer players this might be a little additional roadblock, but if you come down, now the ones with drawbacks are a little bit easier to craft. So certainly this imperfect Boon compound, it now requires adrenal glands, so personally I don't like this compound anyway. If you come down to this unstable Boon compound, it now requires a wild stock eye. I honestly don't remember what required before, but that should be pretty easy to come across, and this would probably be my recommendation for starting out, as these defect points and quirk points, the quirks aren't necessarily negative, and the defect points, that's a pretty small amount. So not to mention it does give you 200 Boon points instead of just 100, but certainly a wild stock eye versus a spitter eye is not that huge of a difference. And coming down to the draining Boon compound, this does require power and is quite a bit more potent, and I don't believe there's really any change here. I believe these already required wild stock eyes. So I don't think there's any change there, and that about sums it up. So overall, it's a little bit harder to craft the Boon compounds just because now they all require an additional ingredient. If you were unfamiliar, the pure Boon compounds, they did not require eyeballs at all, so it was just this compound base, fresh vital essence, and then going up to 2 and 3, it would just be a more complicated orb. So 2 required the pulsating, 3 would require the shimmering orb, and yeah. And to the best of my knowledge, none of the other forging recipes have been altered, but certainly there's a lot of these to check, so who knows, maybe there's something else that has been tweaked. Moving on to brews, there has been a small but substantial improvement to how brews are presented to the user. Basically now you can right click on them and, well, you know, actually see what they do, other than just like, okay, it's going to heal you. So now this improved instant healing brew, you can see it's going to give you 1500 health. So this improved healing brew, you can see that it gives you 150 per 5 seconds, and amusingly it says 150 per 5 seconds. I believe that's supposed to be the duration. And if I remember correctly, all healing brews do last for 1 minute, so that should say 60 seconds. But coming over to this mega strength brew, you can now see that it gives you an extra 50% damage. It says for a short time, but these now last for 10 minutes, which is pretty darn amazing. Pretty invaluable for going out and mining, because it can make the difference between 2-shotting and 1-shotting the rock, say on a tier 6 planet, or really anywhere. So very handy brew to have. And coming around to the Atlas has seen quite a few improvements. I just absolutely love this tool. It keeps getting better and better. It still only updates once every 24 hours, but as you notice, it probably looks a little bit different to you. To me, at least, the contrast between the hotspots are a lot more pronounced, and this is actually for shimmering orbs, which I did a video on how to find these things, and like literally each one of those little tiny, or you know, the smallest hotspots, that is a individual glow cap. So you can literally, you know, zero in on an individual glow cap. Also, the color gradients have been standardized between the different resources. So previously, each resource would kind of have its interpretation, or it was kind of modulated to that resource. So in other words, now when you see something that is blue or green or yellow, that is the same density no matter what resource is in there. So come over here to something like iron on a tier 6 planet. As you can see, the darker areas, it's got some blue, it quickly fades into green, yellow, and then finally just a bright yellow or a bright white. So basically now whenever you see a particular color, it's the same density no matter what resource is actually in the atlas. So that is pretty awesome. The main thing though is that, to me at least, everything just seems more pronounced, easier to distinguish, and I just have to say I love it. And following along with the resource theme, now when you break a block, well, you always get that block. So what I'm actually talking about is, say you would break a trunk and say you got a piece of sap, you wouldn't actually get the trunk, you would only get the sap. This was added in to actually discourage players from getting a whole bunch of wood and just placing a whole bunch of it and then re-chopping it just to get the additional drops. So since that method no longer works, now whenever you harvest wood, you will always get a piece of wood, even if you do get an additional drop. So that is very nice. Combat has also seen a little bit of love, particularly when creatures die. So previously, you would kill a creature and they would look like they were alive until they finally dropped down, well, dead. Now there's actually an animation to their health bar. So if I kill the spitter, you see that its health bar zips down to nothing. So while that health bar is zipping down to nothing, because of latency issues, that creature could actually still attack you. So say you're fighting a wild stock and they're mid-charge and you deliver the killing blow, you still need to pay attention to that wild stock and dodge any of its attacks until its health bar completely disappears. Otherwise, the damage would still count towards you. So this should be a very nice quality of life improvement for hunters, as now they can clearly see when the creature is defeated and when they can safely move on to the next creature. Another great change is now Cuddle Trunk's follow range has been reduced, so theoretically it's now easier to get away from these buggers. Previously it was just about impossible to outrun these guys without some kind of fast grapple. And yeah, let's see how far he... Okay, so he already lost aggro on that Cuddle Trunk, so that is pretty amazing. Let's see if we can get him to actually follow us for a little bit. Okay, throwing bombs at me. Oh, so I can't even get him to follow me now. That's crazy. Let's see, let's get this guy after me. So I guess we're gonna have to wait for him to go through some of... There we go. Now he's actually following us. And so he can keep up with me pretty nice. So as soon as he does any kind of evasion, he falls behind a little bit, and certainly... yeah, there we go. We lost aggro, so... Basically, if you wait for them to do an attack and then run away at full speed, you'll probably outrun these guys. So no longer should these guys just chase you to the absolute ends of the earth. So that is very, very nice addition right there. And going along with the hunting theme of quality of life, now meteors should always display their health bars on active meteors. So no longer do you have to look at it and get just the right angle or get close to it to actually see how much longer the meteor has until it's defeated. So that will be really nice to kind of gauge your progress throughout the fight. And something that may or may not be related to this is they have this cryptic little note under engine that they've added a system to support time-limited events. So off the top of my head, I can think of a number of things this could be referring to. The most obvious, at least to me, would be like maybe some kind of meteorite that has a time limit on it. But sitting here, it just occurred to me that this could literally be something like a seasonal event. But since they give us so little information to go on, the speculation could go on endlessly. Certainly like a seasonal event like Christmas or Halloween would be pretty amazing. It just says timed event, so I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, so that could be a long shot. Certainly something like a timed meteor or some other meteorite-like event that has a timer on it is apparently possible now. So who knows what this will actually be used for, what it's referring to, but I can't wait to see. And who knows, you know, next patch theoretically will be adding new features, so this system might see some use there, or somewhere down the line at least. But can't wait to see what they're actually referring to as far as time-limited events. A subtle improvement to all tools and weapons is that now action speed, or at least the cooldown between swings, has been, from the sounds of it, standardized. So now 15 action speed should be the same across all tools and weapons. And yeah, when they very first added the attributes, I went through the trouble of measuring the hits per minute for all the tools and basically found that action speed made absolutely no sense to me at all, because it just didn't behave in any kind of predictable way. So just literal manual testing of every single tool was required, not only for every single tool, but for every single rank of dexterity as well. So anything that increased action speed had to be tested individually to figure out how many hits per minute. So long story short, theoretically now it'll be possible to do a little bit of testing and figure out a standard model to predict the behaviors of basically all tools. So I can't wait to check that out, as it'll be a huge quality of life for anybody making spreadsheets to figure out just how fast they can gather a resource with a given tool, with a given damage, etc. Another quality of life addition is now many of the feats and objectives have been tweaked. Some of them were just plain bugged or misleading or just very hard to complete, and so some of them have been outright replaced or changed to be a little bit more attainable or clear, or just work in general. So if you had a particular objective or feat that was being stubborn, you might check into it, and who knows, it could be completely different, changed, tweaked, or just simply fixed. So very nice. Moving on to the user interface, now you can actually hit all of the shortcuts to the different windows while a current window is open. So I can go directly over to character, how about exchange, let's see here, what about inventory, back to character. So that is really nice. So no longer do you have to like hit escape, close it out, then hit the new one. Oh, whoops, wrong one, close that out. And so just a nice little quality of life, ease of use there. And as always, there's been a number of bug fixes. There's not enough time to go over all of them, but one of the more notable ones is that there's been a fix for not being able to square or bevel chisel certain dug up versions of blocks. So basically, like maybe you dug up some leaves and then for some reason those couldn't be square or beveled chisel. I didn't personally run into these issues, but I did hear some others simply couldn't chisel certain blocks because they were technically an entirely different block because they were harvested by a player and then replaced. That was a fix that was introduced in the previous patch to prevent players from placing down blocks just to re-break them to try to get the additional drops. Another incredible bug fix that was, it really should be a quality of life, but it was technically a bug, is now when you're looking at a world and you head over to resources, it no longer resets this page whenever the prestige of the planet updates. So that is amazing. If you're familiar, this would update in just about real time, and each time it updated, it would like go back over to details and close out this resource tab, making it nearly unusable on the more populated planets. You could seem to return to Sanctum or go to a less populated planet and still view this information as long as you are tracking the world and to actually have it show up in this list. But now that should be a thing of the past, so very, very nice. There's lots of really nice information in these sections. Another particularly annoying bug for PS4 users that has been fixed is now you can make multiple lines within a sign. So apparently there was no way, I guess they just couldn't hit return, or hitting return on their virtual keyboard didn't have an effect, so they could literally only have one line of text, which oftentimes made signs very unreadable. So that is now fixed, and I know there's going to be a lot of very happy PS4 players to hear this news. Okay, well, I think that wraps this video up. This was Jiivita. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more like this, and if there's anything you didn't like, please let me know down below. Also, if you like my channel and want to get cool perks, check out my Patreon page. Until next time, peace.